For another Threat Hunting Thursdays. I'm David, founder and CEO of Bayse Intelligence, and today we are going to start by digging into. So we have an intelligence feed called Bayse Early Alert, and what that does is it spits out. Right now, it's actually like 20,000 different phishing attacks that we're seeing that are live every day. And what we do from that is identify a whole bunch of different things, including where credentials are collected, which we can automatically parse out of a lot of the different attacks. And excuse me. So what we do is we automatically collect that, and then we make that full URL available in our feed and mention that the purpose is credential collection. So we're going to start from that, and we're going to actually pivot into some pretty interesting ones to see what we're able to see on those credential collection sites. And then from there, pivot in and see, can we find any other attacks that leverage it? And then if we have some additional time, we might jump into something like looking at some current open doors. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so that is our screen. And all right, it looks like volume works. Cool. So this is this is how you would pull our intelligence feed. So we have this endpoint API base.io/feed. And right now we're just saying include all the IOCs. We include IOCs that are generated by Bayse, and then also IOCs that we find that are related to other sources that exist out there. So anyway, we were looking at the last hour, and I pulled this a little bit earlier. You can see that it was slightly earlier than now. But what I wanted to do was highlight one that I thought was pretty interesting. So you can see here we have this santufinance.com.au, and I looked at this for a while, like just looking at the name, and I'm like, wow, that really looks like a legitimate named site. And so I was really hesitant to show this one, but then I dug into it and found that no, it's definitely not legitimate. So we can see that we identify Grupo, Financiero, Ficohsa, and I'm sure I butchered that name, so I apologize for anybody Spanish speaking that's watching this. But anyway, what we identified was, in this case, it was the same domain that we identified credential collection on, but we identified it nonetheless. So the URL that we got was this app/token.php. The final URL that we went to was again /app/token.php. And then finally, we saw credential collection activity going to this /load2.php, which was essentially, that's what comes next. So let's just look at this in our UI quick in Bayse Investigator. See what that looks like. Okay, so pretty clear as day. It's asking for a token to continue. And again, we call out specifically, this is essentially the more fleshed out version of what we just looked at. And there's a whole bunch of different things here that I think we might dig into a little bit later. In this case, they actually referenced Ficohsa.com directly on the site. So that's one way that we're able to identify the relationship to a brand. So let's pivot over to remote desktop. So this is that exact same page. So you can see, let's scroll up here. And you can see right above the virtual machine here, we have this santufinance.com.au/app. And that's what we've got here. In this case, I think when we saw this, or sorry, when we looked at it now, which you can see over here, I think this is Google Safe Browsing in this case, identified it as malicious. Doesn't mean that they identified it when we did, but they did now. So that's good at least. There's plenty that we find far, far earlier than Google Safe Browsing. more on that some other time. But anyway, this is the directory associated with that /app. And you can see a whole bunch of different things in here. Well, we see pretty clearly that we have Ficohsa files, and then we have this this .zip, new 1111.zip. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that because I think that'll be interesting to look at. And let's just see if there's anything above that might be interesting. So I'm going to open that in another page. Like I said, Google Safe Browsing now, I don't know if it was earlier, but now identifies this also as malicious, so good for them. So this is one level up, the parent directory of that /app. So you can see /app here, and then we see 1-BK. Oh, also note, so the /app date is 2023-10/4, so about a month ago, and the 1-BK is from what, 8 months, 7.5 months ago. So this is a very long-lived one, and we can see that in here we've got AT&T card, and then we've got AT&T detail adjust, and we still have more in there. And here we have a whole bunch of different stuff in there for that one, and we can look at what that looks like. Again, Google already knows about this, so that's good. Looks clear as day, like an AT&T login portal. So yes, that looks like it's interesting. And let's just see if there's anything in here that we want to dig into. So we have ssn.html. So that's pretty sus sounding. So don't know. Maybe they just named it weirdly with SSN. SSN for non. Sorry for my dogs if you can hear the squeaking in the background. SSN for non-US folks. If you're on here or listening, SSN usually refers to Social Security number, which is like the one identifier that if it gets compromised, you're kind of hosed as an American citizen. But this is clearly not an SSN collection page, at least not this part of it. So we're asking for a full name and an address and a card number. It's clearly really sensitive information, but not the same thing. So that's really interesting to know about. And let's just look at user.html really quick too. Okay, so that's more or less the same as the login page, just with the user ID. So just different ways for the attacker to kind of start the process there. So now let's go back. Actually, before we get into other things, I want to look in our system and see where else have we seen san2finance.com. So we can go to the destination visited here, and we can get details about when did we first see it, and additional information about what's kind of going on here. So san2finance.com.au first searched today, actually not today, a few days ago, and we can see, there was, we've seen both of the different paths. So we have the finance AT&T card, and then we have the /app. And let's just see, that's all from today. Let's go back a little bit farther. Since everything's within the last week, we know that there's nothing super old that we saw here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there still might be more that are older. Okay, so roughly 60 different results that we've seen, we've analyzed. Interestingly, so excuse me, looks like we actually discovered this first when we saw that it was an open directory. So that's kind of a really key functionality of our system. We're able to automatically identify and then tag open directories, so we can go pivot and see that this is associated with opendir where content is available. So that's actually how we found this. We being the system, not any human. This is all automated. Cool. So we can see that that's where we started. And one of the things that Bayse does under the hood is when we identify open directories that have content available, we'll go and crawl that information and try to analyze those different things. So that's why you see /apt, /apt/Ficohsa files, /1-bk. And then again, each of those also got pushed into this additional analysis. So you can see in rapid succession, we've got 8:52 and 34 seconds, and then 8:54 and 39, and then 40, 41, 42, 43. So like very quick succession, we just went and analyzed all of those different files, and that's really valuable. In fact, it's extremely valuable because one thing that I wanted to do, but it was a bit of a pain without visiting it on a live site, on a browser that I had access to Bayse on, is I wanted to go and see, what do some of these HTML files, what are the site fingerprints associated with them? Because that would be a really nice way to pivot and see where else have we seen that, because this is clear as day a phishing kit. We don't particularly know which one it is or which two it is right now, but this is clearly an AT&T and a Ficohsa phishing kit. So we can actually look at some of that stuff now. So let's see what we got. I'm not sure which ones. Right, so that's styles. It's also styles. Let's check a little bit more recently. Okay, so these are load.php. I'm looking for something that has like the HTML. Because these won't have HTML. Well, they might. Yeah, we didn't have a screenshot because there wasn't anything that we could really crawl. So we won't have any site fingerprints when we can't visit a site that actually resolves to anything. But let's just look a little bit more. One time when I wish that I made these hover overs, we'll have to come back to that and make that a little bit easier to use. Okay, so that doesn't help us. Let's look at this one. That's that one. So that's probably where we're going to see above that. BK ATT card .php. All right, so here's index.php. All right, so we don't even need to open it. We know Grupo, Financiero, Ficohsa, and we already knew that because we identified it previously. Here's a screenshot, and we identified it as an impersonation attack because this was just index.html. We didn't actually see anything being collected. Let's just see where else we've seen that. So we've seen it as old as June 11th, so months ago, and we've not seen it very frequently, but we've certainly seen it. And so it's possible that we haven't seen any other sites with it recently, in which case we won't know exactly what other things we've seen, but this would be how we would identify it. So if there were other ones that we've seen recently, they would show up here, but we've clearly seen this for several months. So that's interesting. And thinking about the dates on that phishing kit on the site, we saw that the AT&T one, excuse me, is older. but the Ficohsa one was pretty recent, so that's helpful to know. Let's see what else we've got. Dogs are awesome when they scream bark. Okay, so this is our AT&T, and we can see, so this is index.html, and we can see where else have we seen this. Okay, so we've seen this far more times, still not a ton, but we've seen it around the same time frame, June of this year, and we've seen it 97 times. So we can see what have we seen in recent weeks as to other sites where it's been seen. So right now, they're all sent to finance. Okay, so we see technostyle101.com. So it looks like in the last month, they're the only two that we've seen. Clear as day, that's the same thing. It'll be interesting to know if we've seen any. Okay, so we saw that as old as September 26th, just to see. So we have got the same naming, SSN. We've got. Oh, so this is still being seen. Yeah, and this site itself is 223 days old. Well, now it's like 226. So that was 2 days, or that was yesterday. So still active, still interesting. Kind of curious to see if we go check that out. What do we have? Okay, so this is also identified by Google, so that's good. And let's just check /activate. Yep, so there's a good example of why you can't just look at the homepage, because that had an HTTP 500 error, refused. I think that's 500 is refused, and then clear as day, this is interesting. And then we know that ssn.html is also interesting. So interesting. So this one actually does in fact ask for your social security number, phone number, and carrier pin. So that's super problematic. So it does look like this could be a problem for SSN stealing or social security number theft for American citizens. So be careful. And clearly we know that this is a kit that's being used and moved around. So it's clearly not the only site that we've seen. We've now seen two, and likely other ones that are just older than our history allows us to see. So really helpful to know. Excuse me. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, so that's more or less the same one. Let's just double check because they all looked similar. Okay, so that's our 97. We already know about that. And then, actually, you know what? I'm gonna tag this quick as a kit. At least we'll know that it's associated with a kit. We don't know what kit it is right now, but that nuevos 1111.zip is probably a pretty good indicator of what it might be. Let's see what else we've got. All right, so we've got that confirm.php, a whole bunch of different things. Oh, well, that's pleasant. So what else do we have? All right, that's the same one. Let's go to the next page. Let's see if this one's any different. So it's still the same structural ID. That one's different because the page looked different. So that's ideal. Because we want to, ideally we want to capture the same structural ID for a site, for the site fingerprints. We want it to match things that look very similar. But if there are differences, say the next page of a phishing kit, we do want to be able to identify that whenever possible as different, because then we can identify, hey, this matched this thing, this matched that thing. You could imagine some scenario where if this were deployed in browser as like an extension or an app or something, you could say, hey, we actually know that you visited the SSN page of this kit. So if you entered your information, like, you should be calling all of your credit cards and canceling and signing up for identity theft. The worst thing that you want to do as an American, well, the worst identity related thing you want to do as an American citizen. So, okay, so this one already matched the 9.2 site fingerprint, so I'm not particularly interested. This one we've only seen on that site, so that's interesting. Or I should say we've only seen it in the last 3 days, so it's likely just that site. Okay, let's see if we have any other ones that are interesting. Check this one real fast. That's the 9.2. Come back up here. Let's double check this one and this one. And that one. Okay, so this one's different. So probably, oh, this one has the same value. And that's one of those scenarios where pro or con as to whether or not it would be better if it would be different, because now we're able to identify two different pages that have the exact same structure but different text. But also it makes a little bit more difficulty with granularity of being able to say we went to the SSN page versus a different page. Okay, that one matches 9.2. This one matches BF2. What else? Let's just check home.php real fast. So this one's definitely different, and that clear as day looks like Ficohsa's home site, B98. So let's just see what we got here. B98 bingo. So this is 42 times since June 11th. And just double checking historically. See what else okay, so here's some stuff on Replit. Replit folks, if you're watching, here's a live, at least one phishing kit. So that's clear as day, and we can see that information went to the same site /save.php. Okay, let's see what else we have here. So we see Santu Finance and then that Replit. Okay, and that was it that we were able to see within the range, but clearly there are more results because we've seen it as old as almost 5 months ago. So it's around, it's a kit. This one's actually a good one to label as a kit as well. Ideally, underneath known framework.phishing kit, at some point when we start kind of enumerating the actual kits, because we collected one, we would associate it with the name of a phishing kit. And whether we use something like, I can't remember, Kit Intel, I can't remember the guy's name. But anyway, you use that and like integrate with them, or if we just start our own, is TBD. So if you are in the phishing kit space and have thoughts on that, please reach out, join our Slack, which you can find if you create an account on our website, free account. That would be helpful to help us figure out how best to relay this information, because I don't want to just stick these phishing kits on a GitHub repo, because then anybody can download them, and that just makes the problem worse, in my opinion. So figuring out how we can make it likely more tied to the people that should have them, the defenders and the people who are trying to understand how to stop and identify these things, rather than the criminals or the skiddies that just use them ad nauseum. Excuse me. So I guess I should have paid attention to all of these. The ones that say this site collected blah, blah, blah and sent them to blah, blah, blah are all ones that we clearly identified a portal. So we would be able to identify those as additional pieces of a kit. Again, we're going back to June 11th. Clear as day, same thing. Let's check this one. June 11th. Okay, so that allowed us to look at both of those. Last thing I wanted to do, I don't have much time here, but last thing I wanted to do, let's actually look at the too long of passwords sometimes. Let's look at the kit that we downloaded real quick. So in theory, you can see this. We found a USPS portal the other day, or not portal, phishing kit associated with some very large ones. So if you've gotten USPS smishing emails or smishing texts lately, that is from that kit, which again, we pulled that from, we found it in our open directory and discovered that it was targeting postal services just by the name and went from there. Okay, so we got lewd language. And this is this looks very much the same. So we got a fav icon, and we've got prismaweb.css, got inline descarga, I think that's discover in Spanish, and then I don't know what this 13F6 is. So let's see if we can click on this and open with, oh, come on, don't be dumb. Let's look really quick. Downloads. Ficohsa. Oh. I realized I was just virtually viewing it. I wasn't actually, it hadn't opened it. And then let's look at this one, 3F6. Okay, so that's, what is it? JPEG. I'm looking for the FFDF or whatever the, yeah, FFDF. So with EXIF data, so it's a JPEG. So nothing too exciting. We could just open it with image viewer in theory. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so that's all that. Let's just really quickly check that inline descarga one, just see if it's, okay, so this is just some packed JS that will likely expand into something that gets used there. So so descarga is search, not discover. Anyway, so I think that pretty much covers where I'd like to stop for today. So we went through, we started with we started with our intelligence feed, actually, and then we pivoted into one of the sites that's live right now, and we dug into the phishing kits that exist on that site, and then we actually pivoted and found a whole bunch of additional sites that were using different parts of that phishing kit over the last 5 months. So I think that's a pretty solid session. Lots of good threat hunting there. If anybody wants to dig into any of those files and go deeper, feel free to reach out to me on any of the social media posts that I put, or reach out to me directly um, at hello@bayse.io. So yeah, I think that's pretty well set up for today, and hopefully we'll get to do this again next week. All right, take care, all.